Hello, my name is Lindsay Rindle. I'm part of the HDR Roadway group, and today I am going to be talking about the backbone method for corridors and a little bit of templates as well. The project that I am going to use to kind of look at and demonstrate is US 24 widening. It is in Falcon, Colorado. It's a fully reconstruct from Garrett Road to Woodman Road, which is right here. We are widening from one lane in each direction to two lanes. We have, we switched to CAD. So we have a median ditch for the southern part of the project. We have multiple backage and frontage roads. There are completely new roads to the area. Let me turn on my survey. We have a lot of different landowners, and we also, the further north that we get, the more we have going on. And so really for modeling this project, main line, the only what we have going on is we have a green T intersection at Garrett Road. It's depressed median the entire southern part, and then it's a raised median the entire northern part. There's one curve. And other than that, mainline is pretty simple. So for modeling this, it made the most sense to model mainline. And then because we have, let me turn this back off. We have guardrail, we have a shared ditch, we have retaining walls. Let me rotate. So we have a retaining wall here that has a concrete line ditch behind it. And then we have another retaining wall on the other side. That's more or less holding up the road. We have guardrail. We have type 9 barrier. We have ditch just varying with different berms. We have concrete box culverts that we want to make sure grading goes to the right location. And then the more north, we have even more. So we have raised crosswalks, we have raised median islands, we have curb and gutter. And we have a noise wall that's behind a type 9 barrier. We have more guardrail. This is a 14-foot high noise wall, I believe. And then we just have more, varying ditches with the width, the vertical, as well as some even have a berm. So because of all of this, the best, design approach for this project, I'm just going to reiterate, it made the most sense to have one corridor for the main line and then have the outside corridors for the end conditions. So this would be the backbone method. The backbone being US 24, and then the outside corridors are split up. So just to show you these three files, this is how we did it. And for this project, we actually did use linear templates, but you can use corridors as well, depending on your process and your project and what makes the most sense. But before we really dove into all the modeling, this is what made the most sense for our project. we have the corridor for US 24 main line, and then we have a south, a mid, and a north, which is just the beginning, the middle, and the end. The reason that we did split it up into three is because, and I'll show you, um, once we got into it and the ditches or the retaining wall, just all of the different controls, it's a lot of information into one file. And so we really wanted to make sure that nothing got corrupt and our corridors stayed clean. Another thing that I want to mention, kind of as I'm just going through here, is the importance of naming. We'll jump into my template briefly, but if you can see here, this guardrail is actually backwards. And so I left it so that you could kind of see the 3D. But as you can see, this guardrail that is supposed to be, protecting drivers from going into this ditch onto Dodge Road is actually protecting Dodge Road from going onto US 24. And, these are the high speed drivers on US 24. Dodge Road should not be going significantly fast, as well as they're going to hit the ditch first, obviously. So, just a simple thing, you can see when I hover over it, but this is a right ditch that is not defined, a right guardrail that is not defined as a right guardrail. It's very clearly left. So, just want to make note the importance of our templates and naming conventions, feature definitions, and defining them not only affects 3D, but it also affects 2D, which, domino effects into planned production, all of those things. So, one other thing I want to mention while I'm kind of in this container is that you can, so US 24 main line is one corridor. This end condition is another corridor, and Dodge Road is a third corridor. We are able to, this end condition targets Dodge Road shoulder. So I think that there has been maybe a question or two about that. We are able to use that. You can, let me just hop over. So this is a different area, but you are able to, when you set a control, so I went to corridor objects, point controls. If I add a new point control, this is just talking about it, but whatever we are doing, you can click that point, and then you can do horizontal or vertical or both, and you can do corridor feature. And it doesn't matter if it's an end condition, you can still control it this way. And then you can choose your corridor that you would like. So in this case, for this 4-to-1 catch, I would choose my Dodge Road corridor, and I would target that point there. And based on how my template is set up, this will always be 6-to-1, this will always be 4-to-1, no matter what. But depending on how your template is set up, you might get an error or something different. You just have to make sure that that the slope is first, and that your control, if you're controlling it both horizontally and vertically, then it may mess with it. But if you are controlling it horizontally and your template is set up with a horizontal, then it will. And we can jump into what I mean by that. So, if if we open up my template, and there's a lot going on in this template. So we're just going to briefly touch a few things. So for example, this template this is my right end. So this includes my shoulder, and then my cut and my fill and my ditch. And what we are going to look at is this ditch. So what I said before, if I use a control for this ditch point and I use a horizontal control, it is not going to stay consistent. It's going to confuse the template and the corridor. In order to, for this situation, not the situation before, if I want to control this, I have to set a vertical control. And that sounds obvious, but even if you want to use a horizontal control, it's not going to consistently work because of how this template is set up. This template is set up to vertically move and move based on the slope. If this template was set up as a horizontal control, then I would change my naming convention to an H. But then we could use a point control horizontally to control it, but it's not going to consistently follow anything vertically. Now, even if you use one, so say this is set up, it's stayed vertically. Sometimes, yeah, it might work to maybe, what the heck? Sometimes it might work to have a horizontal control for this point. However, once it hits where it doesn't work vertically, it's going to break. So you have to make sure that whatever your control is for any of these points, if this one is horizontal, it must be horizontally controlled. And so if we're looking at this ditch, this is my noise wall. This is right here. And this stitch is vertically controlled because there's a box culvert here, and we want to make sure that all of this water goes down and out and doesn't get stuck anywhere. Okay, so, oops. So as you can see, I mean, we have quite a bit of controls in here. And one major thing to note is, I would say a rule of thumb, you really don't want more than 25 controls in one file. And that is the reasoning that we split all these up. Now we do have left and rights in the same file, which is significant. And I think if we did this over again, we'd probably split them up possibly a little bit more, maybe have the culverts in their own or something. We'd have to go through a whole new digital delivery plan and all of that. But I just want to show you, so for the V-ditch, or for the vertical for the ditch controls, I'm going to move this off the screen, but I can turn this off. Oops. And you can see, so this line is 2D. You can see the ditch moved in, and it's probably not draining how we want now, as well as there's a profile control that's going from about 254 all the way to the culvert that I can turn off. Maybe. And so as you can see, this ditch kind of, one, it goes away, but also it's completely controlled vertically. And for this project, this was the best option. Because we need that. We need them to all drain. So as you can see, now I put it back in. Sometimes horizontal might make more sense with curbs. Typically vertical makes more sense, but maybe it's like the back of sidewalk or something. You can just do a simple parametric that would extend your sidewalk. So then you would want to do horizontal. Uh, some other, maybe the median width or things like that where the height isn't as um, imperative. We do have curb cuts along this on the side roads that having the vertical in the curb is very important for us. I can also turn off the switch for our noise wall completely. And let me stop for a second and jump into the template. And so these are set up pretty similar to how Katie set up her template. There's just a lot more going on in here. So this would be the switch for the barrier. This would be the switch for an ultimate guardrail. We have a little bit more room. And this would be the switch for the wall. And so all we have going on is this is just a null point, and this is a horizontal control. And so essentially when this equals 1, it turns on. And so when this is 1 foot from that edge of shoulder point, it turns on and the other turns off. With that being said, another horizontal vertical thing that I always am cognizant of is based on your control or based on what your intention is, you need to be cognizant of if it's a horizontal or vertical control. So all of Katie's controls were vertical, I believe. These ones vary a little bit more, but the point is, say we have something here to turn on when this reaches 1. If it's horizontal or if it's vertical and the road is super elevated, it might occur on its own. So you have to be cognizant of super elevation when you're doing vertical controls. You also have to be cognizant of the switches when you're doing horizontal controls. Because, for example, on this area, in here, where it's kind of funny. I'll go to this one. This area in here where something might be very close to the edge of pavement, and if this was a horizontal control to turn this off, when these get really tight, it's going to be extremely confused on if I set my null point, if this equals 0, well, what if it does equal 0? What if that's part of the design? And so it's very important to recognize that horizontal controls need to be either very drastic or very far away. or not possible unless you set it to happen. Same with the vertical. If this doesn't look that exaggerated, but this is a significant super elevation. If there was a vertical control that turned on when this edge of pavement was whatever below or above my alignment, my center line, then all of a sudden I'm going to get curb and gutter when I don't want curb and gutter. So it's just something to be cognizant and know, recognize the importance of it. Going back, let me turn off my noise wall. We're loading here. So you can see it turned off. My ditch control still exists. And that's one more thing. Template points, how you name, how you control, the importance of it all. Same thing if I turn my guardrail off. There's not really a ditch control on this side, but if there were, the importance of it. And the importance of just simplicity. Like I have a ton of controls in here, and the more drastic that I make that template and make it to control it, the harder it is to follow through, the harder it is to open or close, or for someone to use my line work for anything. So just the importance of how you name things, how you control things, having a plan, and all of that. Maybe not first thing, but definitely before you really get started on, or really get going on controlling your model. We can hop into another. This looks funny right now, but oops. Through this area, this is an intersection, and there are going to be some signals placed at the ultimate. So through here, we are just controlling that slope a little bit. The 2% extends, significantly beyond the edge of shoulder. And so this slope kind of comes out here 2%, and then it comes back to normal 6-1 over like a 15-1 ratio. So, oops. This portion here has a berm. Let me see if we can find some curb and gutter. And this also has a ditch profile that is controlling, so it goes down here and into another box culvert. And as you can see, naming convention for all of these, try to stay consistent, so that if someone else hops in, or if I need to make a change, I know what is going on as well. We're frozen. But you can see that was just a simple on off. You can turn that curve back on right through here. Oh, maybe. So that sort of thing. And then we can look at the last thing I have. We can just look at this guardrail. And we can see that this is on the wrong direction. Once again, we are not protecting this traffic. The left one is correct. Maybe. Oh, the left one is not correct. So if we hop into the guardrail, so that's curb and gutter. This is my guardrail. This one is correct, 3 being right. Maybe it was the ultimate. We just need to be mindful of everything that we're clicking. So we probably want steel, right, apply, close. And that should then fix our guardrail. I believe it's fixed in this one. Boom. And that is all I have for today.